Good evening. Appreciate you all showing up. This is our first Healthy Happy Hour since February 2020. We want to make sure we bring back our face-to-face Healthy Happy Hour. This is an event that we had to turn to a podcast setting because of the pandemic, but we like to do this event because we feel like it's a pretty impactful event, and being able to bring people together who may not have it together at home, being able to learn some new information. So we appreciate everybody for showing up today. You know, some other people may trickle in as we go, but we're going to go ahead and get started with this stuff in people's time. So Mr. David Williams is going to be our speaker today, and thank you, Mr. John Brown, for connecting with us. We got together and we put our minds together to put an event on the focus on Black men's mental health. You know, mental health is a topic that is becoming trendy now, but people are talking about it, but not a lot of people are taking the actual steps. So we want to make sure that we can put each other in the room so we can make the right decisions and make the right steps if we need to be. So I'm gonna stop talking. Mr. David will be our speaker today. He will lead us on learning what mental health is as Black men, how we better help us. Joseph, make sure everybody understands who you are. Oh yeah, I forgot all that. Joseph Ward, neighborhood medical center, outreach specialist, health educator, been in the community for about 15 years now. I have to say, thank you both of you for giving me advice and confidence. This cross leadership time, that's one part of that. And on my own time, I do Black history, life skills, and talk about safe sex and HIV prevention for it. So it's my colleague this week. He's the director of our Ryan White HIV program here at Neighborhood Medical Center. And I do want to say before we leave, I want to make sure everybody connects and knows everybody before we get to the office. So, without further ado, David.
All right.
Everyone, first off, appreciate you inviting this to the topic that is here. I thought I'd introduce myself. My name is David Wood. I'm a licensed clinical social worker here in Tallahassee. I'm a private practice called Innovative Acts, which simply stands for Innovative Advanced Counseling and Therapy Services. I think it's necessary as you do therapy, and I try to tell you, say, hey, when you have something dealing with sex, you got a room full of people, you try to mental health, it's kind of scary. And so with that being said, really for the company and space behind innovation is to make mental health more creative and not simply a space that creates scary. With that being said, one slide, so I thought it was necessary to start off with saying what is mental health. But before I got to that space, I wanted to answer the question first off with this space. What do we do physical health is? What do people throw out the things about what physical health is? What do we say?
Like weight.
You say
Like the weight.
like weight?
Yeah.
Okay, so weight is good physical health. We got one or two more things about what physical health can do.
Being in some kind of physical shape.
Some kind of physical shape. So most definitely. So we know physical health is weight, being in some type of shape. What about financial health? You put your head down like that.
It's funny because I've dedicated the season of my life to financial and mental health and emotional health as well. So it's funny that pops up because I'm going through various separations. So I came back to Tallahassee back in January from zero. So I said, you know what, this is, I'm focused on rebuilding a lot of ways, including financial.
I would say that we're rebuilding financial health because it definitely feels like an equation when you deal with financial health. Lastly, for medical health, I know y'all know a lot about medical health, but you were to just kind of go out the talk. So when you hear the word medical health, what kind of comes to mind?
Medical, you think about blood pressure, you think about I think about like mental health now. Everything goes back to like I go to Mr. John, everything is holistic approach. So neighborhood, we get them in as far as you might come in because you fell and broke your leg.
But that's my chance when I get you in here. I'm looking at your legs, your mental health, your whatever it is, whatever resources you need. If I know you ain't got a place to stay, I know you ain't gonna take your meds. So we look at that holistic approach for patients. So it's like medical equals all of it together. So it all comes to play because if my physical and my financial and my health isn't together, my mental health isn't together either. And it flips like vice versa.
Good, good. I'm glad.
On another level too, we also have to realize that some of this stuff, might just be like a family, right? It might be related to the family and historically, things like that. Which is important, right? You can work out and do everything and keep well. Some of this stuff is just kind of put in history. It's something you might need to pay attention to, right? You might need to take something for blood pressure. You might just have to, that might just be in the history. You know what I'm saying? So you got to, and tracking that information as the journey about really understanding what's going on in our bodies and brains.
I like that you said, knowing what's going on in our own body is important. And I put these things up here because, as good as physical health, a lot of us may be on that, even if we just hear people talking about it, all the different shape. We hear that a lot. You go back to when you play sports, physical health is a thing. Financial health. If you don't learn, eventually you will, right? You essentially gave that to us. Medical health. So you hear that a lot. And we can name several reasons why all three of those is important, but not so much mental health when we get to a space where we understand that it's just as important as all of these things, such as physical health, financial health, and medical health. And I think Terry did a great job with it, essentially saying all of these things become holistic. In my practice, I say, what are any of these things without the number one thing is mental health? Without the mind getting the place, what is everything else? With that being said, going to this. Okay, perfect. All right, so this is part I definitely want to talk about. So the question now becomes, what's in here? I'm going to try to write it. Did it actually So, to that question, when you look at the mind, what's the things, matter of fact, let's do a real time example. Right now, what's in your mind? What's the thought that you have to think of?
What's in here? Like my mind right now, like I'm exhausted.
Exhausted.
Right.
Then exhausted is something that's on your mind right now. Exhausted. Okay? Anything else? And I want to take real time examples for it. And it can be as simple as food, it can be as simple as stress, it can be whatever you want it to be. But if you were to talk about something else that's on your mind right now, what would it be?
Yeah, a lot of people always.
Oh, I just think for people, I heard about those people.
A lot of really pieces.
Okay. So, at this point, before I introduce some of them,
It's mine like a street. Stuff gets crossed all the time.
I'm not even going by the verse, but that one is just right here. So, you got a lot of things.
Right.
There you go. That's a whole lot of stuff. I guess I would say it's trying to keep everything together. Trying to maintain.
Okay, so I like each thing that you all said because some things that I point out and deal with the business often with some of these things. The first thing as a therapist that I begin to think about when it comes to what's in there is memories. I wrote responsibilities, but priorities would be one. Okay, thank you. Responsibility, I wrote things like phone numbers. You got addresses. They include your own, not know everybody else's names. Birthdays. Bills.
Yes.
Okay, I like that. Don't make it nervous. these things start chiming. So the reason I'm bringing this up, and the other thing I wrote, and actually I do want to write is this word I'm gonna write it in red, and it's functionality within your mind. How many of us know that your mind actually tells you to raise your hand? Your mind actually tells you how to walk, how to deal with problems, how to do finances. So we literally, we said more than I wrote on that board. But that is only to introduce the effects. Like real quick. What was that for?
It's right behind the neighborhood.
Behind the,
No, come with the neighborhood. Yeah, right on.
Okay, so now remember everything we just wrote on that board, and then everything that y'all started saying that I think we need to keep up with y'all saying. And let's introduce this way. So we spoke about what mental health was. We spoke about financial physical things like that. And we spoke about what's in the mind. So can we answer that question considering everything that we literally just said goes in the mind from being exalted, priorities, it in the street, how to function, memory, phone numbers, addresses. Somebody said anniversary, and somebody said business. So if we were to answer that bottom question, why is it important to keep the mental health healthy?
because it's everything else. The mind is the everything.
Absolutely.
The mind makes the whole body function. Like it tells you if you're hurting, it tells you what's going on. It's telling you to move. It's telling you if you're sleeping, take your butt to bed. It's telling you to, your mind is the whole thing. If that's not healthy, everything else trickle down is not going to be healthy.
We literally just witnessed a friend go through the first time also a life. And so I would say that's why, because the whole life can be altered in a few days, just by mental health.
There's, and I'm having a great fall right now. There's a running back, there's a guy for the Seahawks, got traded. Marshawn Lynch. He had an interview, and he simply spoke about the mind, and he said they're protected chickens. When y'all hear that, what y'all think about?
Rich kids.
I thought it
I think about kids.
You said I thought we were talking about money.
Kids, you know.
So I listened to an interview when he was on the podcast, and he simply said protecting your chickens had a lot to do with protecting your mental. Because he understood that no matter what he was doing in the sports arena, that he was nothing without his mind. But once your mind starts shifting or slipping, you are no longer able to function in a way that, I mean, think about it. Who said the anniversary thing? I got to call it. Okay, so if you were to begin an anniversary, what happens? This day you chose to be an anniversary.
Well, yeah, it can definitely be stressful in the sense of you go referencing like what are these things that we have on our mind. Like, for me, I want to stay ahead of it because sometimes anniversaries are very important to somebody else. Right? So it's important to them. We want to be important to you.
So at the end of the day, he said, hey, if this is important to someone else, it's important to me, so I'm going to remember it. So what, in the essence of protecting the chickens, what happens in that one moment where it slips? And then even if it's no stressful response, it's the emotional impact. So when we talk about the mental health, and we see everything that's on our mind, there's no way that you're going to walk around with all of that was money. If everything we talk about in our mind is finances, we're not going to walk around with our wallets open and things falling out. We're going to nurture it. We're going to maintenance it in some way, shape, or form. So we spoke about why it's important.
Even on the nurture part, when you reference, you were talking about being healthy, that's very important also. Like who you hang around, what their words are, just the environment that you keep yourself in. I mean, sometimes you might love somebody, but everything, like when you see them, you start feeling negative, you start feeling toxic, and I start separating yourself because again, for your mental health, you need to keep pouring in positivity there. Move how you want to move, especially at peace.
I agree. I speak with a lot of clients who are unaware of the triggers. The environment is one where you could be in an environment, all of a sudden that shit will happen.
Because I wonder that, because the area that I live in and the area that I work in, it's normal to see a person walking down the street, having a conversation with themselves, touching somebody out, like they're coming down their gravel. There's a white guy, you tell he was, whoever was one of the days communicating with him, but he almost stepped into the road. And cars is passing. So I see things like that often. I saw one lady, she was literally getting dressed in the middle of the street. And I'm seeing that so environment. I see it has a lot of it. I'm not sure, I'm sure you probably have understand that, but I'm not sure exactly the impact it has. But it can be a barrier to the environment not conducive to the person.
Absolutely. You know, one of the most difficult parts about what I do, and I'll leave it at this point, is when you see different reasons for people having conditions like that, but all you see on media or social media or commercial things like that is low, serotonin levels, chemical imbalance and things of that nature. And I'm gonna tell you right now, I've worked with people who had anxiety treatment, and their treatment to anxiety opened them up to a space where their life became anxious, and they never learned the skill of how to deal with stress. So they were constantly, when your body is constantly in an anxious state, and you don't know how to deal with stress, you don't get chickens on being protected in those moments. I worked with a male who he had some regret from his past, like a divorce or something like that, and he had lost his children, things like that, and he felt like he deserved the worst, so he lived out on the street. That was a stay, but his self-value, his self-worth was so impacted by something he did and his regret that he just stayed on the street. And now, staying on the street in that environment changed his chickens. And so you may see him in that way. We're not talking about chemical imbalances here. I've seen an individual without medical resources, things of that nature. So when we talk about, I worked at Appalachian with them, intensive therapy, people who have schizophrenia, bipolar, all of these, commercialized disorders, and you start to see, oh man, so your story is different. And so my wife and I started this trying to practice to really be holistic apart. Because what we began to see is a lot of people get into a space where when you mention chemical imbalance and you mention this, they run to medication or they run to something where they don't have full control. Not knowing that prior to the guy who ended up with the divorce and other things that put himself out, he would not go through therapy because it was too sensitive of a topic to deal with. And I dealt with trying to suicide ideation and things like that. When you got trauma, that's a scary thing to reintroduce to the body. So the lack of actually processing and dealing with it created more of a disorder than, this first commercialized statement. And so I'm glad you mentioned that. And I want to bring up a little bit more about the barriers. So let's talk about barriers to mental health. What do we believe some barriers are to dealing with mental health, whether it becomes resources?
Barriers that I feel like a lot of people do is they feel like they don't have a problem.
Okay.
And that's a big thing is the patients. Like we get a lot of patients that we try to give the help to, but they don't want to take the help. Oh, I don't have that issue. I don't have nothing. You just think I'm just doing too much. But it's more or less like, it's not coming out?
Yeah.
I'm gonna say, but just like, those are like the barriers that I feel like a lot of things have, and then it's like the resources. Like, if you deal with, for me, it's to be an LGBTQ, if I go talk to a therapist, I shouldn't have to sit there and tell the therapist about what to expect from an LGBTQ person. And I have to teach you and spend my whole time, my first session, for you to understand me. When I'm here to get understood by and things. Or if I'm going to a white woman, how's the white woman going to understand exactly what I'm going through as Black and LGBTQ? So it's hard to find a therapist, but then when you get those therapists, the LGBTQ, they $200, $400, $300 just for one session. So it's like you look at that and they don't have the funding for that. Or they want somebody that look like them, and it's not a lot of Black men who are doing therapy that are healed. So those are the things that we bear to those barriers. Is like Because when Joe and them found Joe, I said, oh, we got a black, so I need to refer everybody I know that's looking for a black therapist because they're like, you ain't got nobody right. I said, well, I got a black woman, she can help you until I can figure out where I can find a therapist that takes your insurance, that does things, or things that you can afford out of pocket. So that's how the barrier is, the pricing, and they don't look like them.
That's a lot. Pricing. Yeah. What else are some other barriers?
I got to teach you that.
Besides social stigma, also, ignorance. Because we have things that we think not mental issues, but they are. Somebody having a temper. Somebody having moody. We use those words, but really that could be depression and other things that they have to deal with.
I'm curious, what did you bring that up?
About what?
Moody, temper.
Because I live over where people make their dysfunction part of their personality. And so, this is who I am. I just got a bad temper.
Right.
That can set me off.
Right.
You know, whatever.
That's not helpful.
And that's not healthy. Because when I got older, I would have family members that just was always on edge, and I thought maybe, you know, they just, don't worry about it. When really, they have a mental issue.
Another thing is like the support system. Because I deal with a lot of LGBTQ, so the minute they say something with, oh, they get shunned away from everybody, so they have no support, no nothing, so that's doing nothing but tearing those people down. Or if you have that person with mental illness and nobody else to deal with it, they don't have nobody to assist, or just leave them go, they'll figure it out on their own, because we don't have that in our family. And so we deal with a lot of those.
When you see the difference in having support with you?
The difference is you have somebody that's more supportive, they have somebody that'll come with them. A lot of times if they go to the thing, they're not going to understand and remember half the stuff. They got that person to be there. What am I looking for? That person that's going to be there, so like advocate is going to help and assist with them. So without that, it's going to be a lot difficult for that person because they're not going to remember to go to appointments because my mind ain't there. Or I'm just so depressed that I can't do it. And you got to have that person say, hey, help me get up to do what you got to do.
Anything else before I add on?
I would say old time religion, and along with the stigma, cultural attitudes towards depression, mental health, anxiety. I talk to you, soldier through with a prayer.
That's good.
You do being soft.
Yeah.
Pride.
Man, like,
Pride.
Pride is definitely the big word.
That sounds like y'all might know a whole lot about marriage, man. You know, a whole lot more than, if you want somebody to know, but it's the reality. Some things that I broke down here as well was false marriage, unknown resources. So I was speaking with someone who was, we were talking about the fact that even if, let me tell you what I'm talking about. We went to film. Some of our time in film, we didn't understand what was on campus until after we left.
right.
And so that was a big deal. So I want to talk about some of these barriers really briefly. The first of which being the false narrative. As I was mentioning, dealing with clients, oftentimes you say, hey, miracle of God, and they believe that they get a diagnosis and not challenge or changing provider. Whatever you got to do, I'm gonna say, okay, bipolar. Right, scripture gets you all, boom, next person, same thing. So what I learned in the Bible a lot as well is oftentimes it's not bipolar. What happens when your emotions is mixed with somebody saying ignorance, which is mixed with the fact that you don't have anybody or the support that you mentioned, and you also dealing with financial issues. At that point, you're not really assessing what's going on with them. So what happens is you got anger issues, and instead of coming into a space where I say, okay, you don't deal with anger well, you continue to have certain challenges, and every time something emotional come up, you act like this, and you hide, and you know what, yeah, you must have bipolar. I can diagnose somebody with bipolar. When you come see me, I'm honest and sit you got anger issues, okay? Tell me what happens when that anger pops up. Talk to me about some consistent places that pop up. Let's go back into the history where this started. Okay, I'm seeing some parallels. What I notice a lot of people who are diagnosed with bipolar does not know is that the body is conscious of trauma. Yes. The mind can forget, but that doesn't mean it's disconnected from the experience. So your body could very well feel something that your mind is not identifying, but your emotions respond to. I'm not about to diagnose you with bipolar disorder, even though it looks like 1 minute you are high and the next minute you are low. And I'm going to tell you why. I've seen clients take a drive, they smell something that makes them feel happy. Fried chicken and butter. A block later, they see a sign that triggers them of the fact that they was almost aborted by their mother. Anger. 3 blocks later, realized that their uncle was shot 12 years ago in this area. Depression. Is that funny? Bipolar? No.
They're just emotional.
Right. They're human. But what happens when you watch those people get diagnosed with bipolar, give them medication, but never learn how to deal with the trigger? Yep.
So they don't have coping skills. They're just giving them the medicine, but not teaching them how to effectively grow from where they're at.
We live in a world that's mass-produced food, mass-produced medicine, mass-produced mental health diagnosis. And what these things does is keep people in a space where they're controlled, and so we don't have to deal with safety issues in the hospital, but they never learn themselves. I have a problem with that, because each and every last one of us in here has triggers. And if you had a choice, would you prefer your triggers be controlled by a capsule that's going to give you 6 hours of feeling ease, or for you to understand that when I pass those blocks, how to deal with the piece that made me angry, how to deal with the piece that made me sad, and then how to deal with the piece that put me in a depressed state or uncertain. And so when y'all bring up these barriers, I like all the time how the finances, the image issues, looking for the therapist, the stigma, the formal ways, and the reason I put cookies up is because if you watch a commercial dealing with mental health, I guarantee you they're going to all do the same. And they're going to lead you to the same thing. Go contact someone for this. Get a diagnosis for this. I'm going to tell you right now, if you come to me, I can't do that to you. Because just like I said, all of us got triggers, I don't do nothing. And when I realized, oh dang, I was unconscious in this space. And when I woke up my finances, when you wake up your consciousness, you do better, right? There's a lot of people who are just unconscious about what's going on within their own self. But the empowerment you get, and especially in our community, the whole part is how big of a deal the lack of awareness happens here, because if you're going to do all mention, oh, so-and-so is pregnant, so-and-so is act like that. You know what I mean? So that is, these barriers all add up to a lack of awareness.
I got a question.
Yes,
So like we have a patient, literally. It was his first week at fam. He just graduated high school. I mean, he broke my heart. Found out first set Friday, only been on campus 5 days, found he's HIV positive. And the first thing he said to us was, "This is what my mama told me would happen." So how do you deal with that? Because now you're not gonna be able to tell your mother, one, she already knows that you're LGBTQ. But you're not gonna be able to tell her this because this is already setting off the thing. How do you assist somebody with that kind of trauma that his mother is breaking him down for everything that he's doing?
And a big backstory, when his mother found out that he was gay, she constantly told him that he was going to end up with HIV positive. So that's kind of where the process got going.
So how do you address that? Because now that's it's still more depressed and trying to get him to do things is still. My mama's always right about what I want to say, so she said this, I'm going to die, I'm going to do this. How do you deal? Because that's not. I don't think we need medicine for that. But what do we do for him? Like, will he go to a therapist or will he go to a psychiatrist?
and that's a beautiful question, because I see that a lot, where people don't really actually know what they're sad about because life is so complicated. That street that you're talking about, and that street in the mind. So the first thing you really do is pass this, the priorities of the student. So, first of all, really assess in this moment right now, because the therapist want to deal with the here and now depression. Which one has their emotions captivated at this time? Because let's just say that HIV isn't the thing that has an emotion right now. It's really wrong.
Right.
If I'm working on HIV, I'm not going to get to the current. I'm not going to get to it because of the current crisis. So, in a lot of it, you have several emotions. You separate the emotions, and then you separate which thing in that emotion is happening in the present moment, and that's where you start. Because it's a sad thing to kind of go through a space where your parent, put this, you can't deal with what you're dealing with in yourself without dealing with how you feel about whatever that circumstance is. So I was really separated to see what's happening with him in that moment. And it takes extreme time to do that.
Right.
Right.
And then the other thing is like when we have, because a lot of the black men we deal with, they get that you're just like your father, or you know what I'm saying, or you know what I'm saying that. So how do you would all them need to automatically need to see a therapist, or is it just something like because when we're out there in the street, it's like, well, what can you do for me? I can't do nothing for that. Cause I don't know how to break down that trauma from all the way down. So is that something that we could like refer the patients to you, or is that something with because like what's the difference? I know the difference between a psychiatrist and a therapist, but is it wasting the person's time going to a psychiatrist versus a therapist, or you know what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? Like, how do you know where to navigate them where some people really might need to see that psychiatrist?
Right. So what I noticed whenever you send a person to a psychiatrist, so some people, so medication, psychiatrists usually diagnose with good medication, like that's the primary thing. There are some people where their medication has to be in place enough to get them in a stable place to receive it. Like I've had clients who, without medication, their ability to care, their ability to function, their ability, like some people have so whose emotions have been conditioned to be so uncontrolled that the medication is used to get them stable enough to then understand, to then learn, and to then eventually move from it. So if it's something where their instability is so heightened, where their ability to kind of receive it, then the psychiatrist may need to be put into place and then the therapy from that. So that's typically what I see with that opening pregnancy. Okay, so on this stream, I'm going to talk about what does a session look like. I noticed that a lot of people don't necessarily understand exactly what a session is, what it looks like, the steps to it. So, how many of you have researched a therapy or researched a doctor research, 14 research? Starting off research. Something I think was interesting that you expressed is kind of finding that person that you feel like works with. So something interesting about what I do is, I can't just go in and, about to cash you out, right? It's not just a thing. It's not just a situation where it's hard, it's emotional, you can't disconnect. So I understand that when you deal with your therapist to some degree, consultation I do this guys. I know I do consultations too because, like I said, the field that I'm in, you want to see if there's any level of connectivity before I pay you $700 to, spend an hour with somebody I don't connect with. Next, filling out this thing for now. One thing I find very interesting about this field as well, very interesting about people, you have to plant people in there. I'm sure all of y'all have like nieces, nephews, kids, where they can be excited one moment, motivated one moment, that shit quickly. I bring that up because really I encourage y'all that whenever y'all deal with, whoever y'all reach out to for therapy, captivate the moment. If you feel the need then, search, if the intake package is still allowed, do it right there because that moment will shift. It will shift quickly because it's an emotional experience that you're having in that moment when you reach out. Priorities, responsibilities, adversities, problems, like that. Anything will distract you from getting what you need, but that doesn't change that in that moment you need it. And suppression is real. When we can suppress something right now, I mean, if you're on a long ride and you gotta use the restroom, suppress using the restroom until it feels right. And what do we do with bills? We push them back. Technically, that's suppression. Mental is the same way. You can feel the urgency in one moment, but if something comes up that feels like it's more important, you will suppress that emotional experience. And that's dangerous because what did I say about the mind and body is connectivity? Just because you move it up the mind does not mean the body is not holding on. So I just want to encourage that. At the same time, I want, how many of y'all have a loose tie for this one for some of you? Good, I applaud that. What would the experience like generally?
I know this is a mean thing, but I'm gonna share mine. Go ahead. Because see, I had to go through 3 therapists, all very good therapists, but my first therapist is more like talk therapy, right? Like I'm real self-aware. So when I come, I'm talking my stuff I already know. They're like, "Child, that's me." So confirming things that I know, don't help me get better, right? And then there was one who was really the best therapist I think I've ever had, but then she stopped taking my insurance. So now with a therapist who, I came and I was like, listen, I need to set goals. I know myself. I'm not here searching, trying to, but I do want to challenge them pieces of myself that I may be comfortable with and ain't serving me, And so that part has been really good to get a therapist who could challenge my thinking on things because most times you get a therapist and they feel like because you are right, you solid with that, you coming in firm, that's good, but that's not always the case. And so my experience of that has actually been a really good personal thing. I'm also a person that needs progress. I need to see where I started here, and I'm here. I ain't coming to just talk. I could talk with my sister. I do that every day. She's a very good listener. A very good listener. But I need to be able to see progress. And so me and my husband has actually went to therapy, and again, another great therapist, but we're paying hundreds of dollars, and the progress ain't happening, right? I'm hearing you, brother. What you saying? I hear. We cognitively, we got brilliant people, but how do we get to the next stage? So I need to see progress in therapy for me to feel like, one, the money is worth it, and 2, my time, because I'm sitting here and I'm coming and investing in a professional that should be helping us get to the next level.
Yeah. I love hearing people. That's why I think thank you for sharing that. Anybody else want to share with in general what they might have got from this right there?
I'd say I had mixed experiences. I've probably been through 3 therapists and 3 psychiatrists. One of my, I would say, one of my challenges was, I misdiagnosed with ADHD. Went to a few psychiatrists and couldn't quite pinpoint the degradation of what you say my behavior and attitude. And finally, one said, yours is more brain injury. So, concussion is interesting. I worked in the cannabis space for years, so I had access to psychiatrists. Sleep apnea was a symptom of brain trauma, and even one of the nurse practitioners in the space said there's a link between a drop of testosterone and concussion history. So you're talking about the testosterone automatically drops with age, plus a higher propensity with concussion history. So a few of the medical professionals I was seeing didn't quite tie those in. And so I had to find someone who had a history of treating people with brain injuries, also understanding male biochemistry. Unfortunately, I opted for couples therapy instead of individual therapy, and I ended up, I felt like the individual sessions, I got you, I understand you. As soon as you got in a couple situation, I was like, oh, come on, that ain't what you just said to me. You know, you just on her side, this ain't fair. Then I ended up with a third gentleman, but I had some very specific outcomes that I wanted, and I felt like the road was taking a little bit longer to get to those outcomes. Like I want my task orientation back. I want my attitude back. I want my my presence and my confidence back. And I didn't feel like I was getting there. There was probably some insights that were gained that were a little bit confidence boosters, but in terms of the outcomes that when I used to be very diligent about getting things done, I wanted that back. So I fired that therapist. But for the most part, there's two things that I recommend to everybody: mushrooms and psychotherapy.
It's interesting that you say that because one thing we're trying to position ourselves in we're not substance use and medical current crisis and things like that. Because that can be treated. So that is part of that. And I encourage everybody in here to create your own holistic approach. So your doctor, your physician, your therapist, anybody that's involved in your treatment, like I would encourage you to get them in a circle together because and I tell my mom this, like your rheumatologist should not be separated from the primary. The primary should be separated from the therapist because you know everything, but they don't know anything about you. And that's very important because you will get this. I don't know in a medical situation, not because the things that were missed that she knew, but the people that are treating you do not know. So that's like saying my mind doesn't know what my leg doesn't know what my heart like. It should not function like that when you do it to God.
When it comes to that does happen, and as a healthcare professional, we're working on that because we send out referrals, and it's a referral loop, but we never get the stuff back from the doctor. And it's like we're spending time on the phone hours at a time trying to get the other doctor to send me back the referral that I sent you to tell me what happened at that thing so we can figure out to do. So it's a big loop, and I think that's a big instrument in the world, is trying to get all those doctors to talk, especially when I have insurance and I have this quality. And if you look at a person's healthcare, it's based on their insurance. So you have our people who have no insurance and I got a promo doctor. I'm not working as hard. They might be a great doctor, but they're not working as hard for the people who don't have the insurance. But for the other people, it's like quick turnaround. Or those ones who are a little mouthy and stuff like that, they don't get that quick turnaround and put them to the back burner. And you see that on the other side of the community because you try to put them in those atmospheres inside. I need you to be calm. Don't say nothing. Don't speak. Don't do this. So you have to coach them because one little thing that we might see an outburst, but they in pain management. You have, I'm going to discharge you. Oh, they on drugs, they on this, they on that, so no, we're not going to see it. So those are things that we deal with. So it's a great thing to say, a lot of times the providers won't talk to each other or whatever.
And you know what, and that's why a lot of times I try to empower my clients because there's only so much you can do. However, when it's your life and you take something serious, things change. You know what I mean? That self-actualization, the energy you carry, things like that. When you're in a disempowered space, like you can come see me, but I'm not the empowering force over you. Something to what you said, I enjoy learning my findings first. I've been doing long enough to give you assignments, this, that, and other, get you that, doing it. But that is a cookie cutter way of doing it. When I take opportunity to get to learn you, when I give you this assignment, it's going to be effective because I learned you. And so I'm saying that to say I noticed that there's a lot of disempowerment
said, hey man, I just got, I was bragging because I was living in Canada. And I had gotten my prescription is for like a quarter pound of weed a month. Like, she said, but here's the thing. What she told me, she said, all of her study came from PTSD vets. And she said, trauma's trauma no matter how you get it.
Right.
And you're going to get to that point. That's just the progression. So I'm just going to go ahead and read you this prescription now. And so I called a buddy of mine in Georgia. I was like, hey man, I got a prescription for a GP. And he said, oh, you got my shit, don't you? Because I was talking about the snoring. And he said, we can call Calvin. So Calvin Johnson, he's been involved in the cannabis space for years and was part of a concussion study with Harvard. So Harvard is kind of leading the charge on concussed athletes. So if you look up Warren Sapp, he's doing a lot of promotion now to try to get former athletes enrolled because they first looked at NFL people. Then they looked at college football players, but now they're looking at even high school and how some of the impact. So, I have to go into like the whole cascade of events that happen, but at the end of the day, when you get a concussion, your brain creates a mineral that the body can't clear fast enough, and it calcifies, and it kills those neurons. So everything responsible for going through those channels are now dead. So what I was told as part of psychotherapy is teaching my brain to reroute.
Man, that's great that you said that because and I can't help but do this in my head, but when you were saying that, I was just thinking about the manner in which if you're working with a client that has a complex situation like that, then objective becomes how do you separate moments of concussion different from present triggers and this different from trauma. And so even if you can't control which space of concussion is going medically, you still teach your brain and functions that when I respond this way, it's based on my concussion. So how do I keep that space for the medical? Versus having a convoluted space where you're having emotional responses and you can just call it all concussion, or you call it all trauma, or you call it all trigger. And so once again, that separate, like we are, as a human body, is so interesting, but being able to separate that becomes so very important. Even if the separation only says, I know which trigger fits what emotional response. So,
You said in that mental health, when we were in the Black and Brown providers, you had the most interesting outlook on diagnosis. So in all transparency, so when I was 21, I was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. It matched family history. It matched the symptoms that I was having at the time, hallucinations, delusions, all of those things, auditory delusions, all of that. So went through that crazy phase. I would not wish it on anybody. The medication was horrible. Hospitalized, everything. I mean, everything you could think of that a schizophrenic goes through, I went through all of that. And so then there was a period where I was like, you know what, God will heal me, I'm not going to take the medication, whatever. And so for a period of while we were having our kids, I was unmedicated. Let's combine, now that I'm thinking back to on postpartum depression, baby after baby, all of this stuff. And I remember one day my husband was like, yo, I'm about to call the people in you, like, for real. And I kind of, it waked me up because you don't want to go back to the center, right? So you like, what am I doing? And I'm like, first of all, you calling people on me, I'm going to divorce you, that's the first thing. But anyway, it caused me to be like, okay, what's happening? What do I need? So I go back and begin to see the doctor. And I'm like, listen, this is my previous diagnosis. I've been unmedicated for maybe at that time 12, 13 years. And he was like, well, you don't present as a schizophrenic. So they diagnosed me as bipolar mix. And that sounds crazy. I didn't really like that diagnosis because that sounds like everything in one body, right? So I'm like, what? Whatever. So I'm taking the medication for a little while. And again, it's another cocktail of medicine that I'm like, I can't be sleepy. I got 7 children. Okay, like I can't be sleepy. I just can't because I got kids. And so it was okay. So I'm gonna tell you this. I'm gonna take the whole story and I'm gonna go to what you said. So they give me this cocktail. I'm kind of like, I don't know about that. Then I go to another psychiatrist who's like, well, let's try these 3 combinations. Let's see what happens. I ain't gonna lie, it was a very good mix because it allowed me to 1, have one thought, 2, it allowed me to be very relaxed, but more relaxed than I actually am. I fire off like this, right? Y'all see me all the time. And it felt like it had me slow, like I was relaxed. Because people would ask, "See you sleepy?" And I'm like, "No, I look sleepy, like I'm not sleepy." But so it had me slow down, which is not my normal self, which made me feel subconscious when people would ask, "Are you tired?" Right? So, okay, let's go. Then I go back because I'm like, I'm starting to feel like I'm getting older. So how I was managing my mental state as a younger person, now I'm getting older, and I'm like, I don't ever want to become man. Well, I'm probably manic all the time, but I don't ever want to become to a state where my kids have to witness, right? So I'm getting older, I need to get something. And I go back and I'm like, I'm gonna go to Appalachian Center because it's just easy, right? You don't have to navigate all this system. So I go there, and in this particular psychiatrist, she was like, "You never get rid of schizophrenia. Why would they even diagnose you as bipolar? Like the schizophrenia always says that it deteriorates the brain." And I'm like, "What? I'm feeling so defeated." So she give me this another cocktail, whatever. But it was not until I was sitting there with you that day, and you was like, some of this stuff before we get the diagnosis may be behavioral or family trauma, different stuff, right? And it had me, ever since then, it had me thinking about my own trauma coming up as a kid, how I dealt with it or suppressed it, because most of it was suppression in order to be resilient and survive. And what that looks like beginning to unpack those things, right? And I never really told this story to anybody. I'm not ashamed of it, but I've never really shared it. But it's that entire roller coaster of somebody not knowing your whole story, handing you something, you saying it. I'm very articulate. I'm also a self advocate. I can't do this. This makes me sleepy, right? Or I can't be groggy during the day. Or I tell you ahead of time, don't give me anything that makes me groggy. If I say that, if it even put people halfway to sleep, it's gonna make me sleepy. And so that not listening causes you, because they'll say, well, mental health people, they don't take their medicine. It's because most times, and I'm saying as a person who is a vocal person, this medicine ain't working for me. And you tell me, try it a couple more weeks. Give it 3 months. I'm not gonna take that. Because I can't, whatever my thing is. So I'm pretty sure you do this with all of your patients, but that is a conversation that I would like to see explored more widely, specifically with Black people, right? We all have a bit of trauma that we come from that we probably have not addressed and need to address it in a way before we get to a diagnosis. And the diagnosis may still stand, right? May still need to take that medicine. But that is a space that I don't think we're actually talking about, that kind of pre-space before we get to a diagnosis, of learning how to manage, behavioral triggers and different things like that. And so I'm interested in, further hearing topics and hearing you talk about those pieces as well.
And, I'm not gonna lie, it's still listening to you say that because I work with kids. At this point, I'm going through kids from the school up to those like 9, 2, something like that. And I've had moments in my career where I'm working with kids that I hate that dealing with the trauma of this adult too. And I'm watching the impact of the adult, the kid, I'm watching the progress of the kid dealing with it now. But what would have happened if you didn't deal with it because of that adult work too? So I get accused listening to you because I've also worked with people who fell asleep in very bad neighborhoods who, when you hear judge types of people shouting, and the mind, when it's in that state, is dreaming. And sometimes you can wake up in the dream state. And so I work with people who have schizophrenia, I work with people who really those things are happening because they haven't addressed trauma from being asleep. That bothers me because their healing doesn't happen. And so I'm not against medication. Don't get me wrong, I'm not, but I also want medication be a place to help you get empowered, not to be the source of the power.
It's like any other thing in medicine. We have to be honest that pharmaceutical companies do business. And like you said, ADHD, now that has 17 years. And most of the ADHD took the ice of it because maybe they, what you
garden school, so they moved around because of the building, or they couldn't see, or it was home. A lot of other stuff that they won't look at, and then you have too many people that take advantage of the socioeconomic position of some of our people, because they be like, they look to help your son, hey, you get this much shit. Right. And you'll see people, and I teach you a long time, you get that little form on for little Johnny, a little shoes, and you get out the form so they can get their shit. And I heard this day, my mom told me that dumb something.
My mother, right, she had somebody that comes to tell her, go help for her. And the lady came in and she said, I need to teach you how to walk with a stick. My mom turned to me and she said, I don't want you to teach me how to be this agent. And it hit me. I'm sitting down like I told you my baby was pretty gonna turn off. I'm like, oh wow, mother, that's a big deal because she's so to teach you how to use an assistant versus coming to your home and teach you how to use these. We go back to meditation. We go back to any different kind of course. We go back to school. You begin to get chemistry. I actually have a student right now who is fabulous in this education. And I noticed when I first started seeing him in the first 5 sessions, I'll kind of see the ADHD kind of come out a little bit. But then I just, what I said, innovative patch, right? So we don't just do therapy like this. I got up and started talking. I got the marketing going. He woke up. He was more present than me. And I started second guessing his ADHD because I'm like, here's the thing about mental health. Let me make this short and sweet. If you have something, and this I learned from one short thing, I think I went there. If you have a diagnosis that if you shift it in the environment, or you shift the room color, or you shift the way you do something, and the diagnosis is no longer present, this is the actual diagnosis. Because no matter where you go with cancer, guess what? No matter where you go with HIV. So I look at diagnosis from that approach before diagnosis. That don't mean you don't need some medicine to help empower you, to help so you can get control of your emotions. You need some things like that. Medicine can help you calm down a little bit so that it's like a spot. One day you don't get on that bench press and get the lifting to forever have a spot. I don't work with clients for y'all to stay with me. I got some clients now discharged because it's like you got a therapeutic mind in your personal life. Let's move into 2 weeks. Let's move into a month. Because you're getting a therapeutic brain now about your life. I have to have one for everybody, but you just need one for your life. And that's what it should be.
Right. So, parallels to the HIV world, especially talking about medication dependence, because we have behavior modification. So, we have a drug called PrEP. PrEP is pre-prophylaxis of basically, the person out there just rolled all over everybody, and they ain't take care of themselves. They're at high risk of contracting HIV. So they put them on this PrEP drug. No modification. They put them on the drug, and you on the drug, so the drug don't keep you from using HIV. Instead of assessing the person's behavior patterns and assessing why do they make these specific decisions, because we found out some of our patients, they resort to frequent unprotected sex because it's a coping mechanism. They don't drink, they don't smoke, but they have unprotected sex. And so, when you're all the stories have been told, it makes me think about how we've been asking for somebody to come in and behavior modification for a while, but mixing that in because I'm tired of them just. You got somebody that because we're supposed to do counseling sessions. The purpose of the session is to assess how risky their sexual behavior. So we assess them. So once I assess this person, okay, you need to be on PrEP. I give you PrEP, and you go out and you keep rolling. So what's the point? So now we're creating a dependency on the medicine and not teaching the person to take the next step to help themselves because also if session and then they're able to pass them on to you. If this person is, they want this drug, but we want to make sure before they take this drug, that they have different, or they're able to develop different behavioral patterns. And so that's the parallel is helping different behavioral patterns form, healthy behavioral patterns form, rather than just giving you some medicine so that you keep on doing what you're doing. It's not healthy.
I want to leave y'all with this saying, the body has power to live. Every single part of it. If you get a cut, you know what it is. Medication is coming with the cut, deep enough for once again. It's not the issue is deep enough. The mind has a way to live itself. Everything that we have within us is still within itself. It is complete source. And I'm telling you that because when you empower a person, there are things about their life changes. And I watch this, and I watch opposite and I watch the proactive. The reason I say that is because people really deal with, the HIV patient. When we deal, first, I'm from I got to see my grandma. I went to go see my grandma. And I said, she told me she had diabetes. And she said she takes medication. But it used to mess with her breathing, but she noticed that the medication was so well. But she said she would get to a point where they said, Mr. Lewis, you can talk about the medication. You just have to continue to keep her up the way. My grandma said this, and I'm not lying to be quiet, but I want to be like, grandma, what do you think? But, that she said, no, I wanted the medication, man. They call me, man, I wanted the medication, man, because then I can eat the food I want.
Yeah.
But I just want to say, I don't even say that out loud to you. You just told me something to say to instead of getting you are privileged to get you to come off of it, but because you want the comfort of even what you want. And believe so now, if I was sitting down with my grandma, I would talk with her about talking to me about if you went without or not even going without, where is that, what goes on in that case. And when you go that route, I promise you will find fear. You will find anxiety, you'll find trauma, you'll find triggers, you'll find scarcity. And then you say, oh, so you actually do want to take this route, but it looks like trauma, it looks like fear. And when I begin to see that, it makes me look at that. And it's like, wow, so you're actually consciously disempowered. And so we have to remove that to even get you to see that you want to take that route, that in your mind is not telling you that it's connected to triggers, the fear, and anxiety. And that's why I just want to clarify, if your therapeutic journey takes a little bit longer than you want to, make sure, as long as your therapist is getting opportunity to learn it, like for you, my heart goes to you because it says your journey might take a little bit longer, and that's when finances and things become an issue, But if a person has an opportunity to learn your history, I can't say it's going to connect with it. And so I sit back sometimes and I leave my friends see me taking notes, and they'll get to the 10th session and all of the big things start firing off like that. And it might have took 10 or 15 sessions to get that. They get relieving moments, but sometimes people want to be free, and I understand that. But I tell you, when somebody takes the time to listen and learn you, when they start implementing strategies and techniques, it shifts your life. And so I just say that to say I've watched people with so many misdiagnoses because you live 34 years of your life before you take the therapy. And if somebody gives you a diagnosis like that, I don't see it happening. I think diagnosis like, could I have three? And so at that point, I'm going to open up to the Lord, but I just want to encourage you, in everything you do, you know that power itself is assess yourself. Even you, I'm going to go outside. I would go outside right now and I feel something, right? And I'd be like, what is that? I'm a personal story. I used to have moments like this with people before I had a license, before I was seen as somebody, quote unquote. And I leave now to be sad. I used to feel like I never knew what that was. But when I began to be there, I noticed something about me didn't really believe what people saw about myself. So I
all of y'all really taking on what I'm saying. We really have a healthy dialogue. Seems like get out there, feel something. And it used to happen even after I was aware. So let's just say it happens when I'm leaving. I don't do because I'm ready to deal with my children. Like I will tell you right now, I hope it does, but I say that's why I feel that. Because I know what that emotional consistency is. And then I know that that's not just connected to college, that's actually connected to the moments before you went, which is actually connected to your dad, which is actually connected. I did that far enough. I did not let it emotionally escape me because I'm responsible for this. And I don't really have to take a medication to deal with it. Because I can take a medication and shut that off like that. But I never have assessed my process of issues. So at the end of the day, y'all, man, take care of y'all children. If there's anything I can do, whatever, assist y'all with anything, I'm willing to, man. I know what I do. I would much rather watch people walk around the power, walk around being controlled,
Chicken, protect your chicken.
I always say that, but I appreciate your perspective on that, because that's something that, I was talking to my little brother about protecting the chicken, but I was talking about the financial aspect. But now, I'm gonna start saying that more, because protecting the well-being.
I have a question for, I have one more question. So, for a person like myself, I never thought I needed to be a counselor or anything, but what would happen, like, when you go talk with, like, what are you trying to, like, yeah, but like, how do you start? Like, where do you start unleashing? Like, I don't have the issue, so like, what is that? I'm not angry, I'm not, you see? So, if you want to talk to somebody, just, how do you start? Like, what's my issue? Like, I don't know. But you still need to talk sometimes to have that person to get things out. It might not be an issue, but like I was telling, I think Mr. Brown, that sometimes you just want to get stuff off your chest, and it's with somebody that is a safe space that ain't gonna repeat what you say. You might go talk about your boss, you like, and then it's always this. But like you got that person to talk to, but like if you don't really feel it, but you want to talk to somebody, like what are you talking about? How do you I just need to see somebody? But what are you working on to do? Or you see what I'm saying? Something like that.
So, you remind me of two friends. I don't know which one you said, but I have a lady, and this is funny because it's going to go way of being what you just said. But I have a lady, she don't know that she really comes from just the whole time. I love it. Not because my job is easy, because I recognize it as easy. And when you say that people may think she talk a lot, but what she does not know about her, she's in the senior marriage, or her husband will not let her talk. Wow. So literally, I've been seeing this lady for a year and a half, and I asked 3 questions. She goes it, and I'm just writing down. I'm listening. I'm writing down the thing about it. So that's the first thing. So I noticed that's actually a need for her. And maybe once that 2 years of not speaking is up, she's trying to be like, thank you. And said, but 2 years, that's her need. And of course, because it's a safe space, it feels good. She don't know that she want to cuss at times, but she don't. But it's like it's the mental block between what she's cussing. But let her have a bad day. She will take off and to do that progress because now I'm watching her do it more. And about her, you build rapport, you feel safe, and now expressing all this time, you become comfortable with yourself. Not me. You may think it's me, but it's actually with yourself. Secondly, every difference was different. One thing I noticed how I was I do a lot of assessment questions because I do have clients that come in and they want to talk, but they actually need to hold on to a question. So I would just tell you if I'm in a position, just a therapist position, I don't know. I was going to come, she said, I don't know why, she comes to me every week. She said, they don't really have to talk about it. Can I add 1 or 2 questions? And she gets the ball because as a therapist, depending on your skill and your ability to know your client, you know what buttons to trigger and help your client process. People will get to a point where they feel well. And if you have a sense of them and you agree, great. But then they don't look at sheets. I have sheets and documents that says when they get through this, touching this subject, and they talk about 10 sessions ago. Reopen. And so just know that sometimes it's not about you speaking. Let somebody
let somebody explore who you are. And that's really how I feel like therapy is. Let me learn who you are, so if I have the capacity to help you with what you're doing. Don't expect this piece of time. Somebody care. Like, take that part of therapy where people just care about hearing you say something and then assisting you with whatever you say. But yeah, it can get pulled out of you now. Purposely, something gets pulled out, but every therapist works together.
You know what, I'm not going nowhere near BCG, but I do a lot of podcasts, and I've done a lot of interviews, and I noticed that like certain people, they're like, I'm really shy. But you ask that one good question, and that person who don't talk a lot, it's been 45 minutes and they ain't shut up yet. So I get it on that surface level, right? Asking the right questions.
You can hear the person, I don't know if y'all had experience, you just ask somebody who's trying to get on it, or you told them that red was good on them, and it, my favorite is what they look up. Because she felt good in that red, or he felt good with that tie, but it didn't come out until you said it. You know what I'm saying? Or, you know, people, I've seen people who ask them how many days going and they just need that, and things like that. So I'm telling you, that one question will heal you. One question will open up 10 more needs for sessions off that one question at assessment. And so I just don't, when you think you're well, be grateful, but don't take it for granted. And take it, and so whatever you, don't feel like you need therapy, because if you feel like you need thirsty, you've been thirsty for a long time. You know what I mean? So if you feel like you need therapy, at that point, you probably didn't need it, and they really should. So, yeah, that's it. God, you know, the question is clear, and I'll be part as well. Other than that, I appreciate y'all.
That was good.
It's always good.
Yes, I was good to see you.
So appreciate you. Nah, man.